What was it like living in the Soviet Union when Joseph Stalin took over?
I was a 30-year-old teacher living in the Soviet Union when Stalin came into power. I had one son, and my husband was drafted into the military. We really had no freedom, and there was no freedom of speech. We could only read what the state allowed us to, and the authors had to write to glorify Stalin. Authors were so depressed they couldn't write what they wanted and had to follow the strict rules that many of them committed suicide rather than doing what the state ordered them to do. Education was strictly controlled too. They had rigid program of discipline. Us teachers had lesson plans made for them. Oh my gosh. Us teachers had lesson plans made for us by the state that would only glorify Stalin.
How did Stalin's background, childhood, and decisions help shape him into the person they eventually became?
Stalin was born into poverty. As a young man, became very interested and later involved in revolutionary politics. He became involved in criminal activities and was arrested. When he got older, he changed his last name to Stalin, which means man of steel. He grew up as an only child and was beaten by his father, which is the main factor on why he became very aggressive. The scars all over his face are from getting smallpox. When he was young, the way he ran his country is he would essentially scare us into doing certain things. He also had a very good military that helped enforce his rules.
What role did Stalin have with respect to World War II?
Stalin signed the non-aggression pact with Hitler, which promised us that when they invaded Poland, they would give us half of it, so we wouldn't attack Hitler and Germany wouldn't be faced with a two-front war. Later, Germany invaded us and disregarded our pact we had with them. After we joined the war, Stalin started to participate in the major Allied conferences. Iron will deft political skills enabled Stalin to play the loyal ally.
What were their successes during the war?
Stalin put off war with Hitler for a long time. When Germany invaded Stalin, he burnt everything in the area they invaded, killing many of his own citizens so he could leave the Nazis stranded with no supplies during winter. Stalin moved everything that could be useful to the Nazis so they would have nothing and starve and freeze to death.
How did their accomplishments in the war impact their country and the outcome of the war?
I was forced to leave my home in Moscow because of our country's strategy to leave the Nazis stranded. My husband was killed while fighting in the war, and when they burnt Moscow, my son was killed in the fire. Sadly, I lost everything and had to find a small home in the country away from the war. I found a small teaching job. That was a tough year. I barely had any money to buy food and pay for my rent. I was living paycheck to paycheck. We were in the war for 3 years.